Dragon Age Inquisition is boring. The game design of Dragon Age Inquisition is so oppressively dull and tedious. Everything is a fucking meaningless abstraction. Short tangent, experience points are always an abstraction. Some games may try to make it mean something in the lore of the game, but generally speaking, an experience points is just a medium for the player to understand how their character is growing over time. It doesn't usually make any sense in the game world, that's why it's represented with numbers. It reminds me of some of the episodes in the Pokemon anime where they mention a Pokemon's level, and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Oh no! That Rhyhorn must be at a high level!
They're like, oh yeah, your Dratini's on a really high level. And I'm like, what? What? How do you measure this? Does the Pokedex do that?
Now let's level you up. And the only way to do that is to get experience from battling.
I just hope Charizard's at a high enough level to beat Electabuzz.
This one's level is higher than I thought.
So yeah, everyone just sort of accepts that experience points are points that don't really mean anything, but they show you how strong your character's getting. But in Dragon Age Inquisition, they turned every single fucking thing into experience points. Do this thing X amount of times and then you can move on. It's the same exact thing for almost every mission, every encounter, every time you want to progress the storyline. It's the same bullshit, tedious nonsense.
I hear fighting. We should return to the Great Hall.
It makes everything feel like a fucking chore. For those who don't know, who haven't played Dragon Age Inquisition or whatever, if you play the game, in order to progress the story, you need to gain what's called power. In the story of the game, it's supposed to translate to how much influence the Inquisition has gained over time. But even that analogy doesn't really work because there's a separate bar literally called influence, which is basically an experience bar for the Inquisition itself. But power is basically how much sway you have in the politics of the region. Why is the power of the Inquisition represented this way? Later on in the game, even that analogy doesn't quite make sense because you can literally buy power and influence. How the fuck does that work? Never mind the fact that it's literally corruption. If the whole idea is this is how much political sway this upstart organization, the Inquisition, has, then how does it make sense that you can just have some random guy sell you stuff that makes you have more political sway? The thing about power, too, is that it doesn't really make me feel like I have any power. It's just a number. You can help a dude in Redcliffe find his missing lamb, and that gives you power? That gives you political power that you can then use to stop an assassination attempt later on? What? Instead of me feeling like, oh yeah, my Inquisition's really getting stronger and it's really growing as an organization, I'm just like, hey, let me just go to these 5 places on the map, and oh hey, what do you know? And it's bad enough that the plot literally stops unless you have enough power to move on to the next thing.
Unfortunately, neither group will even speak to us yet. We need agents to extend our reach
to the stars above.
Look for other opportunities to expand the Inquisition's influence while you're there.
2,000 years later.
We must have done enough to draw the attention of the clerics by now. Shouldn't we meet with them?
It's not fun when games make you do side quests. Side quests are supposed to be on the side. If I wanted to brute force my way through the story as someone who doesn't give a fuck about politics and is gonna force people to work with me no matter what, I should be able to do that without having to do all these fucking side quests that don't even really result in anything. Take a look here in The Witcher 3. This isn't even really a quest, but I want to get into Novigrad, and to do that I need to cross this bridge. I can either do a quest for this man to get a legitimate pass, do a quest for this man so I can get a discount for a potentially illegitimate pass, or I can try to bribe or magic this person into letting me through. Or I can just swim or steal a boat to get across. Doing this is admittedly a little bit glitchy, but the game allows you to do it, and it's prepared for you to do it.
Damn the bugger. The patrols will track him down.
In Dragon Age Inquisition, what can you do? You can get power. They also have these requisitions that you can do where you gather materials and you get to craft stuff for the Inquisition. So the first one you get is to make better swords for your Inquisition. Maybe there's going to be some grand assault that we have to wage later on in the game. Nope, nothing like that. There's nothing like that in the game. If it is, it's entirely scripted and has nothing to do with how much power the Inquisition has. When you do these requisitions, your real reward is just more abstractions, more power. If I gather a couple fucking materials, I can now make weapons for my entire army, and it just gives me 1 power. If I find a dude's fucking lost sheep, it gives me 1 power. After that, I don't even care about what the end results of the quests are. All I want is the power. But that's the way that the game design has been changed in Dragon Age Inquisition. It's no longer about affecting people and meeting people and affecting change in these various locations. Now it's just about completing a checklist. Now, in Dragon Age Inquisition, you literally have a person who gives you a checklist the moment you enter a new location.
What is it? You may want to look into this.
Furthermore, this is a bit of a tangent, but how come I'm the one doing all this shit? In the beginning of the game, you meet a guy who's like, hey, I need like 10 bags or whatever of ram meat to feed these villagers. You don't have to finish this particular quest until very later on when the Inquisition has already been established. Why can't I just send an agent or something to do it? Even furthermore, how come when I go to one of my camps, all my agents are just sitting around not doing shit? The game tries to give you the pretense that things are going on without your knowledge, that the Inquisition is actually this long-reaching organization with many claws and talons everywhere. But when you actually go to a place and look, they're not doing anything. You can find little Inquisition soldiers here and there, and they give you a treasure chest, and it just has 2 fucking items in it that aren't even any better than the equipment I already have. What are you guys doing all this time? How come when I go to the war table and I tell people to go find some coin, they give me a measly amount of coin that I could easily get from killing like 1 bandit?
Snake, what have you done? You changed the future. You've created a time paradox.
These guys must be the most incompetent fucking agents in the history of the universe. It doesn't feel fun or rewarding. There's no one to talk to. There's no personality behind any of it. This is how a quest starts in Dragon Age Origins.
Huh. Someone finally comes and talks to the lone prisoner. I don't suppose you've come to sentence me.
This is how a quest starts in Dragon Age Inquisition.
That's the last of the bread. Going to be a long, hungry night.
These people need food?
There are rams out in the hills.
This is how a quest starts in The Witcher 3.
Witcher! John Vernon, remember? He saved me from the drowners. It was Coppolis then. Now, why, my purse is bursting.
Mm-hmm. With coin that belonged to the refugees. Vengeance tastes sweet.
This is how a quest starts in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Excuse me, have you seen another Inquisition scout? Elven woman, answers to writs.
You said your friend hasn't reported back?
Well, she was supposed to be checking on some apostates. I'm on duty here, or I'd go look for her.
I'll talk to you later.
Now this may seem a bit superficial, but there's something even in the presentation of it that makes a huge difference. In Dragon Age Origins and in The Witcher 3, when you talk to an NPC, they have your undivided attention. The camera is focused on them, extraneous sounds are cut out, you're listening to what they have to say. The camera's also not glitchy as fuck. In Dragon Age Inquisition, they only have the scripted camera for some cutscenes, what they deemed important, I guess.
Aren't safe. The Grey Wardens thank you for your aid, Inquisitor.
It's not fun gameplay, and that's a huge part of this game because for some godforsaken reason they wanted to make it like Skyrim. Full disclosure, I am not a fan of Skyrim. I'm going to repeat the antiquated phrase here, as large as an ocean but as deep as a puddle. The combat sucks in Skyrim, I don't like the level up system, the characters are boring and meaningless. So many times in Skyrim, NPCs are just talking over one another, and it just makes me care even less about what they have to say, which I barely cared about to begin with.
It's in the most immediate danger. If that dragon is lurking in the mountains.
View that as a provocation.
And when you really only have exploration to hold your game up, when all the other shit sucks, it just ends up not being a fun experience for me. So for some dumbass reason in Dragon Age Inquisition, they decided to make a huge part of it exploration, but exploration is just not fun in Dragon Age Inquisition. I recently played Breath of the Wild, and I don't own the game, so I can't really get footage for it here, but I might show some trailer footage if Nintendo will stop being a dick about it. Breath of the Wild does a lot to encourage exploration exploration in the first place. All these different biomes and regions and spaces that make you say, I want to go there and see what that place is about. And then when you have that feeling, there's a fun way to get around the map to actually fulfill that goal. Dragon Age Inquisition doesn't do that. They made all the maps super huge, they made them really mountainous and everything like that, but it's not fun to get around this map, nor is it very interesting. I don't think there were ever moments where I was like, oh shit, what's that in the distance? I want to see what that is. Actually, no, scratch that. There was one moment, and that's when the giant is fighting the dragon at the Storm Coast. Some of these maps are fucking ridiculously huge too. Their map for Haven is gigantic. It just keeps stretching out for no fucking reason. There are no enemies on this map except for a few animals. Why is it this big?
Now, remember back in my Banjo video where I talked about how smaller maps are more exciting to explore because all the interesting stuff is more concentrated? Well, with this game, they have gone ahead and achieved the complete polar opposite of that.
But then we have to talk about the combat. Look, BioWare, you can't simultaneously have a system like Dark Souls where it's very visceral and very focused around reading enemies' movements and attacking, dodging, blocking, and parrying in these kind of twitchy sequences, and also have a slow-paced, tactical, strategic battle system where characters have to be in very specific places in order to out-strategize your enemy, even if you may be weaker than them. I like the Mass Effect battle system. It works very well for Mass Effect. I also like the Dragon Age Origins battle system, even though it's a bit of a clusterfuck. Dragon Age Inquisition is also a clusterfuck, a major clusterfuck. When you don't have the tactics system activated, you're expected to be able to dodge and block and parry attacks. You're expected to set your party members' tactics in advance so that you can just worry about who you're controlling, and it doesn't work because the tactics system has been gutted too, so you can only say whether you want a party member to not use something, to use it moderately, or to use it frequently. That doesn't even fucking work, because I had Dorian in my party. I told him to use his necromancer abilities very frequently, and he didn't do it. He just never used it unless I manually told him to use these fucking abilities. I have no idea why that was happening. Not only that, but there's no dedicated dodge or block button. Dodging and blocking are tied to skills, and in fact, only warriors can block attacks. And then there's the fact that controlling the battles this way has been the least fun and least interesting manner of it for me. It may not be the same way for everyone, but I just found the animations to be very repetitive after a while, and I didn't think the spells or the skills in this game were impressive at all. I have a theory that the reason the spells and talents are so boring is because of the multiplayer for this game. Dragon Age Inquisition was the first time they added multiplayer to Dragon Age, and I feel like because of the multiplayer, they had to make sure the spells and talents were very, very, very balanced and weren't too flashy. I think that the multiplayer uses the same exact spells that are in the single player. So then that leaves the tactical system, and that system is broken. It's just broken. The AI in this game sucks donkey balls. I mentioned this in my Broken Games video. In the first hour and a half of one of my playthroughs, I found 2 of these glitches. The first one is where the enemies stop moving. Their animation gets frozen in place, they stop attacking, they stop moving. You can just wail on them with everything you've got. And then there's a different variation of this glitch where your own party members will get stuck. How did this get past in the development process? Oh yeah, and on the tactics menu, you actually can't move the cursor over ledges. It's a cursor. It's not supposed to be a physical object. Sometimes when you use a spell like Energy Barrage, it just won't fucking hit anyone. It'll just completely miss. If you jump onto certain objects and try to use the tactics menu from there, the game will just teleport you off. And you don't have any idea where it teleports you. It just teleports you right off. You don't get to be smart in our game. And none of that even is the real kicker for me. The real kicker for me is that this battle system is just fucking boring and tedious. Enemies have ass loads of health for no fucking reason. It's made worse by the fact that enemies can do shit like guard and give themselves basically an extra health bar. I played through this game on Nightmare mode and on easy mode. This battle that you're seeing right here with the Archdemon is on easy mode. So you're fighting this dragon, you're like, oh man, yeah, I'm slowly inching away, very, very slowly inching away at his health, slowly but surely, and oh, fucking Christ, use guard. Now I gotta slowly inch away at this guard health bar. Finally did it. All right, let's keep going, guys. Let's make sure we can stay in this battle. We're running low on health potions. Let's just keep up the fucking Christ. Are you kidding me? Fucking piece of shit. This is the first major boss fight of Dragon Age Inquisition, which I want to compare to the first major boss fight of Dragon Age Origins. Already in this first boss fight, Inquisition shows some really bad trends that it will continue through the rest of the game. But for now, I just want to focus on how tedious this battle is. It takes a whole minute and 10 seconds longer than the one in Origins. Keep in mind that I'm fighting with a full party plus all these archers that are attacking from the sidelines. Dragon Age Inquisition has a much faster battle system than Dragon Age Origins. And the Dragon Age Origins fight is on Nightmare mode. This one is on easy mode. Throughout Dragon Age Inquisition, it seems like rather than create these really interesting boss fights with multiple phases, they just gave the enemies shit tons of health and made them summon minions when they're in trouble.
2 of the biggest gaming sins known to man.
So quests are boring, battles are tedious, exploring isn't fun. What's left? The dialogue system, which is actually really good. What I like about this one is that your character can learn more stuff and it opens up new dialogue options. Although I don't like that it's hidden behind the Inquisition perk system. I wish you could just organically find codices and you automatically know more about that subject. But I digress. The dialogue system is amazing, but the game has clearly shifted focus from a very dialogue-heavy, character-centric system to a more exploration-based, battling-based system. Nothing shows this more, I think, than the Winter Palace. Here's the rundown. You're in a mansion full of nobles, and you have to stop an assassination attempt. Only thing is, you don't know who the assassin is, and you don't know when the assassination is going to take place. Not to mention, everyone's out for themselves in this mansion. Everyone wants some kind of political gain to come out of this, so you have to carefully navigate the politics of this mansion in order to find out who the assassin is, stop it, and not expose yourself. The idea and concept is great. Here's how it actually plays out. You run around the mansion finding a bunch of fucking collectibles. You try to increase your court approval, which is basically a glorified timer which ticks down every time you're in one of the off-limits areas because, I don't know, they get really lonely without you around? What the fuck? What if I had to take a massive dump? Or why can I see this? Why is this an actual gauge that I can see? How the fuck does my character know what the court thinks of me? And it's really shocking to me how little important information you actually get from talking to the nobles in this game. But the actual plot threads start moving in the battling and exploration part, which honestly should be completely optional. It goes back to that same focus. Complete a checklist, talk to some people, maybe, but it doesn't really matter. And again, none of the nobles really have any distinct personalities or character traits that make you really want to remember who they are. If the Winter Palace were in Dragon Age Origins, not only would there be a shit ton of nobles with unique personalities to talk to, but you would be able to sweet talk your way out of everything. You could probably sleep with some nobles, you could probably persuade them, bribe them. Instead of finding these random fucking collectibles, you could probably find some scandalous documents, bring it before a noble to expose them, and try to get them on your side or use it to garner favor with them. Instead, there's a bunch of shit hidden behind these random doors in the mansion that you have to find these magical keys to open. It adds another checklist to the game, which is especially egregious because one of the biggest plot points in this whole section of the game is hidden behind one of these doors. It's okay to have locked doors, and it's okay to have doors that only rogues can open, but I feel like I wasn't really rewarded for exploration here. I was just rewarded for mindlessly collecting all these damn collectibles that don't matter. The door isn't hard to find, and if I wanted to get a key, why not let me talk to some nobles or maybe bribe some of the servants in order to get them to open the door for me? No, instead you have to find these stupid magical Hala statues that are just randomly placed throughout the mansion, and once you find 6 of them, you can open the door, which hides this huge freaking plot point that I didn't notice until like my 5th or 6th playthrough of this section. This lack of focus on character and dialogue is what makes it so hard for me to replay this game. On my first time through, I was fine with it, but every single subsequent playthrough, no matter how long I wait in between, is always so hard for me to get through because I'm so bogged down by the monotony, the tedium of collecting all these items, trying to gather power, and fighting these enemies with massive health pools. The game just gets so boring and it becomes such a chore that I stop caring about the character that I'm trying to create. An elf who believes in the human god and becomes possessed by this idea that she's Andraste's chosen. She becomes a force to be reckoned with, even though deep down she really wants to help people. She'll smash anyone who gets in the Inquisition's way, but she falls in love with Solace, who doesn't believe that sort of stuff. His love makes her doubt, but the farther away he grows from her, the more she retreats into her role as the Inquisitor. It was really, truly interesting how I had to start building this character around the other characters that I met. The fact that this character was a religious character and not a mage meant that she was more likely to support and be in line with what Vivienne wanted. However, the fact that she was an elf and in love with Solace, and the fact that Cole saved her life, meant that she would sometimes have a different approach to magic than Vivienne agreed with. It created this super interesting character-centric dynamic that I wanted to explore, but I kept getting distracted from with all the rest of the bullshit.
I'm the Maker's chosen.
You know this ending cutscene is still fucked? I've beaten this game 3 times all the way through now, and I still have no idea what the hell this cutscene is supposed to look like. In Trespasser, even though I didn't recruit Sarah or Dorian, they both still show up. And Dorian thinks we're like best friends now? When did this happen?
It's good to see you, my friend.
The entirety of Trespasser is just filler. Fuck the Kunari, fuck all this walking back and forth between places. The only 2 plot points that actually matter in this whole DLC is what happens to the Inquisition and what Solace has to say to you at the end of the game. Honestly, that should have been at the end of the main game, not left off in some DLC that most people aren't even going to get. During the main game with this character, I wanted to execute Blackwall, but I didn't get the option to do that, so I just made him a slave to the Inquisition. This doesn't come up in Trespasser. They act like he's just an old friend of mine who stayed with me out of faith and loyalty. In fact, at the beginning of Trespasser, I couldn't talk to him or Varric. It was like the game was compensating for actually letting me talk to Varric at the end of the main game this time. Can't say I'm all that excited for Dragon Age 4. I did enjoy Dragon Age Inquisition my first time through, and I think everyone should play it at least once. But every subsequent playthrough, the more I have to deal with the power, the checklist, the battles, I just lose more and more respect for it. I can at least say this. Graphically, the game is a huge step up. But maybe instead of polishing up all these glossy textures, they could iron out a few of these goddamn glitches.
If that's what happened to the woods, do you think we can free them? It's possible.